Good evening, everybody. I am truly delighted to have everybody on this show. I see a lot of friends on the show also. And I would like to introduce to you the whole concept of the GSBA talk show. Firstly, it is absolutely, I'm honored to have Mrs. Narang on the first chat show of GSBA. She's been someone that a lot of us over here have looked up to. She's a mentor, she's a philosopher, she's a guide. And welcome, Mrs. Narang, on the GSBA chat show. Absolutely a blessing to have you on. We, Mrs. Narang, has an experience of over 47 years in education. She started in 1968. She has worked with a lot of boards in India, including Bihar, Gujarat Board, UP Board, CBSE, ICSE, IB, and currently she is working with an NGO school. Before Sugam, she was the founder director of Pathways School Gurgaon, where she set up the school and she laid the foundation for Pathways. Before coming to Pathways, she spent a considerable number of years with Vasant Valley, where she started as a founder teacher, a teacher in the founding team of Vasant Valley, and went up, of course, with her caliber, her hard work, her passion, which we all know that she has. She went up to becoming the head of school of Vasant Valley she headed. And there is a lot more. I mean, considering that she started in 1968, we could talk and talk about it, but we will leave that for you to explore and find out about her. So, once again, welcome Mrs. Narang to the talk show.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Anvita.
So today's our topic is setting the stage for learning. And when we talk about setting the stage for learning, we talk about, we'll think of lesson plans, we'll think of manipulative, we'll think of class discipline, classroom management. We think of all of this. But really, is that, I mean, of course, that is a part of setting the stage for learning. But what more do we need to do when we are setting the stage for learning? And when we were planning for this, and we were talking to Mrs. Narang, and we were talking to her about this, she came up with something quite beautiful. She spoke about how learning is one thing and education is another. So we decided to focus on the journey. It is really going to be Mrs. Narang's journey from teaching to educating. So, Mrs. Narang, I would really like to start with you telling us what is really the difference between teaching and educating. To a layperson, it seems like the same.
First of all, Anvita, I'd like to thank you and everyone at GSBA for giving me this opportunity to share my views. Over the years, gradually your experiences crystallize and they become clearer to you. So I'm glad of the opportunity to be able to share them because in the sharing itself, there is learning. There is learning for me also. I'll begin with the topic of today is setting the stage. Setting the stage means getting everything ready beforehand so that the show goes on without any obstacle, without any obstruction. You spoke of worksheets and a whole lot of other tools, lesson plans and, videos and whatever, with all that you need for a successful classroom. But I think that the most important person who needs to be worked on to set the stage is the teacher herself. Through the years, I have watched report after report being presented by various governments. I think to date there have been about 105 that have been presented. But very little change has happened. In the majority of the cases, majority of the teachers, uh, a few IB, few ISC, थोड़ा बहुत चेंज होता है, पर जो मेन सिनारियो है उसमें चेंज नहीं हो पा रहा है, and that is what is of concern. uh, I don't want to go into the reasons of this, but the first thing is that the teacher has to set the stage for herself by preparing herself, by understanding the difference between teaching and educating. When you're teaching facts. You may even be teaching skills. But when you are educating, you know, everything that you teach becomes a composite whole. It becomes a student's belief system from which everything that that student does emerges from that belief system. And that belief system is formed very slowly, bit by bit by bit, which means that there has to be a certain consistency and a certain cohesiveness in what a teacher does with the child, says to the child, or the experiences that she gives to the child. And I am going to be using the pronoun she because in this profession, most of the teachers are she's. Most of the teachers are women. So she needs to first educate herself before she can educate the students. And if you talk about why, what is it that she needs to educate? I mean, she's got her degrees. That's why she's been appointed a teacher. She's done her college. She's done her teacher's degree. She's doing ongoing courses also, which are a requirement today. It goes beyond that. It goes beyond the context, beyond the content, to understand why she is teaching what she is teaching. And more important than that is how is it going to be of use to the child?
Hmm.
How is it going to be of use to the child at whatever age or stage of life the child is now? And how is it going to lay the foundation? And when I'm talking of this, there has been a lot of talk recently in the last 5, 10, 15 years about experiential learning. And what I find is that people they're not very clear about what experiential learning is. They will they will curate and craft wonderful experiences for their students. But then once that experience is given, that's only an experience. That's not educating. Once the experience has been given, then you need to take it forward to education by examining it, by exploring it, and then coming down to what the crux that you are going to believe include in your belief system. What is going to enrich your belief system? Anvita, may I give an example as a teacher? I always work with examples better because somehow words don't get across as well as examples.
Ms. Narang, please do. We are here to listen to your experiences, and we want to go beyond what AI can tell us and what college told us, BA told us. We want to learn from your experiences. Please, we are looking forward to it.
Anvita, I'm going to pick up an example from one of your, uh, when you were a teacher.
Right.
And you did a whole project on waste management, which is very much the need of the hour. And it was a beautifully crafted project wherein you began by asking them what is the meaning of waste, and then you got them to examine the waste in their classroom, and then you got them to go to various parts of the school to examine what waste is there in the office, what is there in the sick room, what is there in the transport room, what is there in the gardens, various places. Then you told them, okay, go and examine the waste in your own houses. And then you took them on a trip to the nearby village, and you had organized that for them to go into various houses and check what is the waste generated over there. And then you even took them on a trip to the big waste
Yeah.
dump,
Gazipur.
Gazipur. And, and they were, of course, shocked by it. And when they came back and all the data they had collected, you asked them to analyze it. And if I remember correctly, the most important analysis that they came up with was that the maximum waste that they found was packaging material, all kinds of packaging material. And that uh, packaging material is generated more in urban areas than in rural areas. And that in rural areas, there is much more recycling than there is in urban households, within the households. And that, seemed to be a very good experience for the children. But that was still only learning, that was not educating. And I remember going in and asking them, so what is it that you're going to do? They said, what can we do? I said, so what was your finding? Your finding was that there is maximum waste from packaging material. How are you going to cut down on use of packaging material yourself? And then somebody said, so we buy less packaged food? I said, yes, that could be one thing. And they said, that means we buy fewer chips packets and this and that. And that was the struggle for them. So far, it was academic. But now, when they had to decide whether to buy a bag of chips or not, that was the point when it began turning into education. So we have to take it right through to the point where it touches them personally.
Absolutely, Ms. Narang. I totally remember that. And yes, the children didn't use packaged material for a very long time. And I remember at that time, pizzas were something that, used to come in boxes. And they came up with an idea. I mean, giving up eating pizza was a lot for them, so they didn't want to do that. But what they did say is that they're going to order family packs so that they can reduce the number of boxes that they're going to get to the. So yes, that's absolutely correct. We move it to really real life learning. Ms. Narang, the life of a teacher, because I've been a teacher, you've been a teacher, and you've been a principal, and you've been school director, and you know the kind of things that happen in a school. As a teacher, when we listen to it and we are passionate about it, we always say we want to do this. And then comes school, we get to school and we get into the push and pull of calendars, parents, meetings, documentation, authorizations, all that starts. um, how does a teacher then find time to do this? I completely understand what you're saying is so relevant. That is what education is. But could you give us some ideas of how we could find time to do this?
First of all, again, an example, Anvita. You have the capacity to buy anything that you see in the market today to eat. But do you have the capacity to eat it all? And therefore, you are selective. And there are times when you choose junk, and there are most of the times, hopefully, you choose healthy food, right? And that is what schools need to do today. They have so many choices. They have the capability of doing so much, but they need to make the choices of what is important for them. And it's a misconception that the more activities that you do, the more there is education. Again, education can happen from fewer activities if they are taken right to the point of where it becomes personal for the students, and where they began thinking in terms of what it means to them and what they are going to do about it. How is it of value to them? And the Gestalt theory says anything that you learn deeply and thoroughly in one area will become a part of every part of your life. Therefore, it's a misconception that you need to have a calendar full of activities and events and all that. You need to be selective you need to have a variety. You do need to have a variety, but you do need to keep a balance. Having said that, there is a responsibility on the teacher of if even if the school has that many, which are the ones that she is going to focus on to take right to the end of educating. And if she has done one of that kind, then the next of that kind maybe perhaps need not go so far. I know what I'm saying is going to not going to go well with the managements of the school, uh, but that is the truth. You have to make your choices. Otherwise, these choices will be made for you willy nilly, because there is only that much time and there is only that much quality you can give.
Yeah. And I think in a desire to do a lot and give a lot of experiences to the children, because we want to make it experiential for them, and we want our social media pages to look good as well, and we want to show the kind of work that we are doing. So in doing that, we are actually not letting the child stay with any experience. So they are one after another rushing into experience, and something that's a very important part of learning, which is reflection. When you actually learn, we're not even giving children that time to do that. But having said that, I I empathize with the teachers, and I completely know how it goes. And no matter what we want to do, we kind of get pulled into this whirlpool of the calendar events and all. But I must mention something over here. Today, when I was thinking about this talk show, and I was thinking of, what is the importance of this talk show? Why are we even doing this talk show? What came to my mind is that teaching is probably the single most profession that touches the lives of so many, many students. And through those students, we touch the life of parents, because parents get molded by what the children are saying. And parents listen to us because mostly listen to us, and sometimes don't listen to us, but mostly listen to us because we are teaching their children. And it's ironical that we are the people who are actually creating generations after generations and generations, and we are actually the architects of society, if I may say so. But we don't but we are I mean, this is off this talk, but because probably we are poorly paid, or we were poorly paid, we don't take our profession so seriously, and we say, I'm only a teacher. And that is, we are not only a teacher, and that's what I was thinking of. We have a lot of power in our hands, and a lot of times we say, okay, if I don't do this, how does it make a difference? But it every we have the capacity, or we have the honor of touching the lives of children who will remember you for years and years and years, and probably talk about you in their corporate meeting as a CEO or something, and say, this is what my teacher did, and I'm still carrying it with me. So and that's kind of dawned on me that I think we as teachers need to give our own profession a lot more importance than we do. We are very, very important people of society. The gurus, if you go back to Indian history, Indian tradition, Indian culture, the level of a guru was higher than the king also, I would say. What do you think about that, Miss Narang?
uh, the role of the teacher has also changed over the years, where the teacher was supposed to know everything. uh,
Hmm.
where the documented information or knowledge was kind of limited, and that limited knowledge was interpreted in a whole lot of various contexts, and wisdom came from using that amount of knowledge. But today there is an information explosion. There is so much knowledge that it's no longer you the teacher cannot be the repository of knowledge, but the teacher has to become the person who directs you towards knowledge, who asks. And for that, uh, of course, what I said earlier holds very good, but it's also understanding where whatever we are doing, where did it originate? With time, it has to change. It has whatever we are talking about. From the time of its origin, through the journey, through the ages, it has morphed and it has changed. But the reason why it originated, the thing which is of value, are we holding on to that still, or have we lost that? किसी ने मुझसे पूछा था कि शाश्वत जो होता है वो कहाँ गया, और मैंने उनको कहा कि शाश्वत जो है वो तो कभी बदलता नहीं है, युगों में नहीं बदलता है. इट डजंट चेंज थ्रू द एजेस. इट्स मैनिफेस्टेशन चेंजेस. और मुझे याद है उस समय जब मैं ये बात कर रही थी, तो आई टुक ऑफ माई रिंग एंड आई सेड, व्हाट इज दिस? एंड ही सेड, दिस इज अ रिंग. I said, right, this is a ring, but what is it made of? And he said, gold. So I said, the value of gold will remain the same. It was the properties of gold were the same, and the value was the same when we started valuing gold. And through the ages, the forms that we have given to it have changed. The kind of jewelry that we have made out of it and the kind of uses that we have put to it have changed. But the essence, value of gold doesn't change. In the same manner, we do a lot of things without understanding the value. Again, example देती हूँ. um, पीछे होली खेलते थे बच्चे, तो my own grandson, he said, Daddy, I need a pichkari, I need a new pichkari. I said, okay, but what are you going to do with the pichkari? And I then, got me thinking, and I asked a lot of people, and I asked some teachers also, कि पिचकारी क्यों यूज करते हैं हम होली में? They're looking at me, रंग डालने के लिए, we use it to spray color. So I said, but why? What is the importance of spraying that color? And they really didn't have an answer that was meaningful. So then I asked them, I said, okay, how do you use the pichkari? How do you use that? They said, there's a plunger, we plunge it and we take out all the air. And I said, and you create a vacuum? They said, yes, we create a vacuum. And then when you put the nozzle in liquid, and when you pull the plunger back, the liquid enters into the tube, and then you spray it. And I said, and why is this used on Holi and no other festival? And then I said, look at it. There is a significance to this. And by the way, the Pichkari was a much later add-on than the time of Krishna, with whom Holi is associated. When you empty out the cylinder of a Pichkari, you are creating a vacuum, and that is what you're supposed to do with yourself. अपने विकार, अपने गुण अवगुण सब एक बार निकाल दो. And then when you pull the plunger in, you will be able to pull in the new. And that new, which hopefully is Shashwat, which is true and value, that is what you spray on to others. In the olden times, people used to wear brand new white clothes to show how much they have. The symbolism was that each color that is sprayed on your white clothes will be shown, and you symbolize what you have learned from somebody else in that. But this has been forgotten. So somewhere, whatever we are doing, we have forgotten the value of what it is, why we are doing it. What is the purpose of that? अभी दशहरा आ रहा है, दिवाली आएगी, उसमें भी हम लोग यही करते हैं. दशहरे में, दिवाली में बत्तियां इसलिए जलती थी बिकॉज श्री राम वॉज कमिंग बैक टू अयोध्या ऑन एन अमावस्या. It was a dark night. He was going to land in the evening. He had traveled all the way from Sri Lanka. उड़न खटोले में आ रहे थे, पर फिर भी टाइम तो लगता है ना. And therefore, the people of Ayodhya lit lamps all over the city to show to Ram from a distance, this is your Nagri, come here. Do we need that today? Do we still need to light up our house? What changes do we need to bring? That is what we need to look at.
Yes. Very true, Ms. Narang. And it's so interesting that, having worked with you for so long, all of us have learned, I have learned a lot um, of mythology and how you have been connecting mythology to the learning and also provoking us to think beyond what the what we see. So how does a teacher do this for a student? Like, we were students for you, you did it for us. How does a teacher do this for a student, where we use these kind of examples and we get them to think? And this is something you've always said, that teach them how to question.
Another story.
Hmm.
I was once, wanting the children to understand that cultures and civilizations have developed in the same manner.
Hmm.
The format may be different. So I was comparing I think it was Janmashtami, and I was comparing the birth of Sri Krishna to the birth of Lord Christ. And I was saying that before both of them were born, there was a lot of unhappiness and sin happening in the cities, and there was a Akashvani for Herod, and there was an Akashvani for Kans, and they knew that their nemesis was going to be born, and they were powerful people, and they wanted to protect themselves, and they said Red had all the boys killed, and Kans, उसने अपनी बहन और बहनोई को जेल में डाल दिया, और कृष्ण के 7 भाई बहन जो पहले हुए थे उनको मार दिया. But yet Christ was saved and Krishna was saved. Christ was born in a stable in a barn, and Krishna was born in a jail. And they both went on to change the lives of the common people, right? And when I was telling this story, one child got up and asked me, and he said, Ma'am, you tell us that God is all powerful, he can do it himself. Why did he need Jesus Christ to vanquish Herod? Why did he need Krishna to vanquish Kans and put an end to? Why couldn't he do it himself? I said, I don't know. You tell me. And then he said, "Oh, why would God forewarn these people, forewarn Herod and Kans?" I said, I don't know. You tell me. And then the class finished, do teen din guzar gaye, and nobody talked about it. And one day this child came and accosted me in the corridor, and he said, Ma'am, I know why there was an Akashvani. And I said, why? And he said, because God is merciful. He wanted to give Herod and he wanted to give Kans one last opportunity to change. That learning, that learning. If I
Amazing.
had given that answer, the child, obviously the child has thought about it, he's discussed it with his family and all that. But the conclusion that he has drawn, so it's not that we have to provide all the answers. We have to give them enough hooks for them to think.
Yes. Very true, Mrs. Narang. I would like to use this example of a talk show. When you are going into a talk show, you feel, oh my God, there's going to be a lot of things, and it'll be like heavy laden with information, and we'll have to keep that in our head. And then what usually happens is you just sleep through it, and in the morning you wake up, go to school, and life comes back to normal. But what I'm loving about listening to you over here now is the fact that you're using, I mean, the stories that you're telling, the connections that you've made for the students, for us, keeps these stories, keeps all that in us for such a long time, and we keep using it at different places. And even when we feel that we've forgotten what this was, believe you me, it comes back. you know I know a lot of us over here quote you a lot, and we keep saying that she would tell us this and she tells us that. And my question then is, why can't each one of us be a Mrs. Narang to our children? Why can't we use these stories? Why can't, what you said in the beginning, and you said that a teacher needs to prepare for setting the stage for learning, which goes beyond the pens and the pencils and the crayons and all of that. From what I'm getting from you is, I think one of the things that we need to prepare, we need to educate ourselves. Now, for example, I mean, coming from what this the cultural space that we are in, the NEP 2020 has one of their main strands is that connect the students to the Indian culture, cultural heritage. That's what it says. If you look at IB says the same thing. Work with the culture of the host country. So with our teaching, with the fact that we have a curriculum to finish, we have assessments, and a lot of times teachers feel that the assessment is not going to happen on what we are going to tell them, the stories that we are going to tell them, but um, it'll happen on education, is going to happen on, and mostly it is rote learning that we are doing. And now listening to you, and otherwise also, one feels that that's such a disservice to them. Can we not come to a balance where where we say, okay, assessments are important, that's going to get them their entry into college, and we also do this bit of educating? How do we come to that balance?
Um, there is a very strong movement all over the world to not focus on content, but to focus on where that content takes you. And like I said at the beginning, you may be in a school where you have to, where the culture is such that you have to complete the syllabus, and you are time bound with these things and all that. But at least every once in a way, at least 5, 6, 7, 8 times in the year, if not more,
Mm.
you pick up things where you spend time and you allow the children to walk all over, and they can get lost, and then you bring them back when they get lost. You pull them back to a sense. uh you begin to ask them, how do you know what you know? फिर एक और कहानी सुनाती है छोटी सी. दशहरा आ रहा है, और
Mm.
ये एक बारी मैंने खुद किया था कि मैंने आई थिंक इट वाज द फोर्थ और द फिफ्थ क्लास, छोटी सी क्लास थी. मैं गई और मैंने कहा, अच्छा, सो वी आर गेटिंग रेडी फॉर दशहरा, सो व्हाट इज दशहरा? एंड that came the answer: victory of good over the evil and truth over untruth and all that. And who were the protagonists? Ram was the hero and Ravan was the uh, villain in the piece and all that. I said, अच्छा, रावण के बारे में क्या जानते हो आप? They said, ma'am, he was very strong. 10 सिर थे उसके, और उसकी लंका जो थी सोने की थी. तो मैंने कहा, अच्छा, सोने की लंका थी, तो इसका मतलब दीवारें सोने की बनी हुई थी, सड़कें सोने की बनी हुई थी. And then suddenly they started thinking, what is the meaning of सोने की लंका? एंड खुसफुस खुसफुस कुछ थोड़ी देर की साइलेंस. उसके बाद उन्होंने बोला कि वहां पर बहुत थे, पैसे बहुत थे, सोने के सिक्के होते थे, तो पैसे बहुत थे वहां पर, इसलिए उसको सोने की लंका बोलते थे. सब लोगों के पास सोने के सिक्के थे. तो ऐसे अगर सब लोगों के पास सोने के सिक्के थे, तो वो किस तरह का राज्य होगा? What kind of a kingdom would it have been? And then they said, it must have been a very prosperous kingdom if everybody had so much gold coins. So if it was a very prosperous kingdom, then what kind of a government would there have been? It would have been a very well managed government that was looking after the welfare of the people and all that. And then I said, then who was heading that government? And suddenly they began seeing Ravan in a different light. And then I said, अच्छा ठीक है, रावण के 10 सर थे. Is there any human being that has 10 heads, any creature that you know of? But ma'am, this is mythology. And then one student got up and said, this is all humbug, ma'am. ये सब हम लोगों को बेवकूफ बनाने के लिए कहानियां बनाई हुई हैं. So I said, okay, come with me. And I took them out, and I used to do a safety audit every morning. And then I had seen an exposed wire, and I told him, I said, if you all come over here and I show you and I tell you, don't come here, look, there's an exposed wire over here, will you come over here? They said, no, ma'am. I said, why not? They said, because it's a naked electrical wire, we can get electrocuted. So I said, you know about electricity and you know the power of electricity. But if I bring a nursery child over here and I tell that child, don't come over here, will that child understand? On the contrary, he will be more curious and want to know what it is and experiment with it. So what I tell him, there's a dragon over here, and that dragon spews fire. And don't go there. If you go there, the dragon will eat you up. And the child is scared and doesn't go. And I said, these stories are the same. You have to understand them at your level of understanding. If today you think it is humbug, then you delve into it deeper and find out what is the truth. And they started talking and they started discussing that maybe 10 सिर का मतलब उसके पास 10 जनों का ज्ञान था. वो इतना ज्ञानी था कि उसके पास 10 सिरों का ज्ञान था. So, we continued, so you keep on asking questions like that, wherein they are questioning their own beliefs and their own knowledge and their own quick and easy acceptance, in the facile acceptance of whatever story they are told. And as they grow, that's what I said, as we grow, it's the responsibility of the teacher to know at what level he or she is interacting and to prepare herself for that. और कुछ ना कुछ तो ऐसा होना चाहिए जहाँ पे फ्री फ्लो होना चाहिए.
Yes. So what you're saying, Mrs. Narang, is that even if we have very tight schedules, as a teacher, we should find maybe 4, 5, 6 times a year where we spend probably just 2 hours with them and let them walk all over, like you said, and explore what they're looking at, explore themselves. And we are all teachers over here. This will help them with their critical thinking skills and all of that. So all that we're not going to talk about, because I'm not going to mention, because you all know that probably better than me. But I want to mention over here and tell all the community that has come together for this discussion, is that after Mrs. Narang had this, I mean, I had the honor of being in the same school. This whole thing, the students talking about Ravan and all, uh, she she put together a, a debate for Ravan. And Ms. Narang, can you talk briefly about that? Because that was so beautiful. I mean, it gave all of us goosebumps. And this is something really for us to think, that how do we get our children to think beyond what they've been told and what they know?
The law says that you are innocent till proved guilty. But the way we look at Ravan, he is guilty till we prove him innocent. And we started to, we invited the parents, and there were teachers and there were students, and all of us, and this was at the beginning of the school when our numbers were also small.
Mhm.
And they started talking and all that. And then one student got up and he said, I mean, how terrible for a brother to know that his wife's, for women, nose and facial beauty is so important, और उसकी नाक काट दी गई, तो भाई को कितना खराब लगा होगा. And we talk about protecting the sister and all that. So how can you say that Ravan was wrong in going and fighting for the honor of his sister? How can he, what was wrong in that? And then somebody, and I am treading now on very fragile ground, I understand that. But I am quoting over here. I'm quoting the discussions that happened at that point over there. And I want all of you to understand that you people need to form your own senses. So they said, फिर लक्ष्मण रेखा भी तो पार करी थी ना. जब बिल्कुल मना किया था कि नहीं ही करना चाहिए, तो उसके consequences तो होने थे. And then they went on into discussions, and there were a lot of discussions like this, wherein a lot of questions were asked and lot of sacrosanct ground was opened up. Areas which had not been opened up were opened up. We had to bring it all back also. And I realized that there was a lot of things that were said that made me feel very good about it. But I also realized that I couldn't leave them hanging. And therefore, we did a follow-up of that, if you will remember. So what is your learning at the end of this whole debate? And through questioning, through probing, we had to bring them back to the question of accepting that whatever is told, ultimately, each one of us is responsible for our belief system. We are responsible for our thoughts. We are responsible with how responsibly we analyze, and with what responsibility we use that discussion is at the end of the day our responsibility. So whatever stories you hear, whether it's mythology or it's panchatantra or it's fables or it's drama or literature. Ultimately, what you make of it is your responsibility. And that, I think, I don't know how well we were able to do it with the younger children, but for the seniors, we were able to definitely, they were able to understand that. And that
Yeah.
is also important
Yeah,
to
we
bring
did
to.
ruffle, we sorry. We did ruffle some feathers because, getting into the space of religion is a little not happy, but we weren't looking at religion. We'd gone beyond that. We were looking at characters. We were looking at how we form opinions on hearsay,
Yeah.
and something that Ms. Narang, you've always said is let children form their own beliefs, their own impressions. And I think that was just a start to that, not to shake up anybody's belief or anything. It is mythology, but it is about questioning what we've heard for years. I mean, and we may still come back and say, okay, this is what we believe in, but then that's our belief, and it may change tomorrow. And I think setting the stage for learning is that where we set the stage for our children to, yes, take exams, but also become thinking people. So, catch them for a little quick conversation, involve them in these stories. Stories are the best way to teach. I don't know, we haven't even realized that we are almost at the end of this session, and there's so much still more to talk to you about, Ms. Narang.
May I
Um,
may I intervene over here for a minute? You
yes.
just spoke about exams. You know what you have to realize, that educationists at the top who create these things understand these things very well. If you look at the CBSE question paper structure, about 40 to 60%, anything ranging between that, is supposed to be questions that most of the students will be able to answer. And then the next 20% are more challenging. And the last 5 to 7, 8% is the differentiator, and that question is the question where the student is required to put together all the learning and use it in an unknown situation. That is where we need to take them. We need to complete that journey over there. And if we complete that journey over there with every unit, where we are taking the children to understanding the essence of what they are and how they will use it. If you have the time, एक छोटी सी आपको और कहानी सुना.
Absolutely, Mrs. Narang. I hope you're going into the partnership space, though.
Okay, I'll go there. That's
Yeah,
fun.
yeah.
I happen to be in this NGO school that I am at. Uh, I just happened to be walking by a classroom and I saw that they were studying about partnerships. So later in the day, I asked the teacher, "What are you teaching?" And he said, "I'm teaching about partnerships and why partners are invited, what are the advantages, what are the disadvantages, that partners are invited to share your challenges, and they bring assets and they bring wealth and they bring opportunities and they build connections and they bring uh, reputation and a whole lot of things they were talking about." So I asked him, I said, "So how are they going to use this?" He says, when they grow up. I said, "No, how are they going to use it now?" So he looked at blank at me कि ये 11वीं 12वीं के बच्चे हैं, अभी क्या यूज करेंगे पार्टनरशिप्स को. So I had a little time, so I walked into the class and I asked the question, and of course, Pat came all the answers and perfect. Blackboard summary ban gayi, हमने कर दिया. Then I asked the children, "So, of what use is this learning to you?" And some of them said, "Ma'am, हम लोग तो partnerships करेंगे नहीं, हम लोग तो वैसे बच्चे, हमारी तो background वैसे है नहीं, पर it's interesting to know." So I said, "Partnership क्यों नहीं करोगे?" And they looked at me in surprise. I said, 5, 10, कितने साल है आप सबकी उम्र? They were all 17, 18, 19. So I said, 5, 10, 15 साल में आप लोग शादी करोगे ना? They said, हाँ. So I said, "Isn't that a partnership?" And then each one of those principles that they had enumerated to me, we examined them in the light of this partnership of a marriage. कि जब शादी होती है, तो जब लड़की दो तरह से होती है, या तो लड़की शादी करके लड़के के घर में आ जाती है. So she is bringing wealth She is bringing opportunity, she's bringing reputation, she's sharing your burden, she's sharing your load. And on the other side, the family then accepts her responsibilities as their responsibilities, because her liabilities become their liabilities, just as in a partnership it becomes. And so that is what a partnership is. Or agar dono ladka ladki, they set up a household of their own, then they are both bringing in these things. They are both bringing opportunities, wealth, and the whole caboodle. So there is an equality over there. And suddenly they were looking at marriage in a different way. And my purpose was to establish equality in marriage. And I think that happened. That
Yes.
happened.
No, absolutely beautiful. Absolutely. So I think as teachers we can just make these connections with our children, even if we are teaching history or we're teaching English. There's always a connection to make. Now I have been told by the team, Mrs. Narang, that we are running out of time. So, and it's a pity because I was enjoying this so much. But we have a very interesting section. So, a lot of us know Ms. Narang, but I'm going to ask her, I'm going to put her in a rapid fire round where I will ask her the questions and she will answer in one go. And let's see if we find out more than what we know about Mrs. Narang. Are we ready, Mrs. Narang?
Sure.
Okay. Your favorite book?
Atlas Shrugged. Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged. That was the book I read when I'd finished my grade. हमारे ज़माने में school leaving was after grade 11, and I remember 1 week I did nothing but read that
I
book.
read it. Yeah. I can.
Barely slept, and that's my all-time favorite. I've gone back to it so many times, and every time I've gone back to it, I've come away with something new.
Lovely. A quote or a mantra that inspires you.
श्री कृष्ण ने कहा था कि कर्म पर तुम्हारा अधिकार है, फल पर नहीं. That, but I have a little twist to that. अगर कर्म पर तुम्हारा अधिकार है, कर्म करोगे तो फल आएगा ही आएगा.
Hmm.
एक आधी बार ना आया तो कोई बात नहीं, पर आएगा. कर्म
I.
करो.
Your favorite teacher in school and why?
Uh, she was my teacher when I was in grade 8 and grade 9, Mrs. Conway. And she was the one who sparked this in me. She would allow us the time to just sit and talk. And even if the school bell had gone, she was always available for us to carry on. It was a boarding school, and she was always available for us to continue that discussion. So
Oh,
she was definitely my favorite.
she inspired you. A subject you enjoyed the most as a student.
Language, both the
Oh,
languages.
all right. Do you binge watch Netflix or something?
Yes. What do you think? Just because I am so old and I have gray hair, I don't binge
No,
watch?
no, no. You're just so knowledgeable. So I'm wondering when you find the time for that.
Oh,
But
plenty of.
you clearly manage your time better. If you weren't an educationist, what would you be?
हमारे टाइम में 4 प्रोफेशंस होती थी. डॉक्टर बन जाओ, इंजीनियर बन जाओ, लॉयर बन जाओ, आईएएस बन जाओ. Nobody wanted to be a teacher. So I had actually wanted to be an IAS, or join the services,
Mhm.
the services. And actually I had come to Delhi from Ranchi, from where I had finished my graduation, to find out about these courses. And शादी कर दी, बस.
Hmm. Mrs. Narang, you are so good at the languages that we hear you talk, whether it's English, it's Hindi, or it's Punjabi. I'd want you to pick one for us. Which is your favorite language?
हिंदी.
Hindi. Okay. Which was your most enjoyable age?
When I was 18, 19, that was most enjoyable, and the present time is the most enjoyable. You were so full of idealism at that age, and everyone around you felt the same way, and you felt you were going to change the world. There was so much energy and positivity at that time. And now I am very grateful for the opportunity that I have of putting to use all that I have gathered over the years at the NGO school that I am working at.
Lovely. The one thing that you would like to change in the world?
आजकल एक गाना है नेट पर, तेरी संतान है हम. I wonder if you've heard it.
Yes.
वो कहता है मैं हिंदू हूँ मैं मुसलमान हूँ कोई कहता नहीं मैं इंसान हूँ. That is what I want to change.
Oh my God.
We are all human beings. We are all human beings. लहू का रंग एक है. आपने अशोक चक्रधर की वो 3 टेस्ट ट्यूब कविता कभी सुनी है कि नहीं? कि 3 टेस्ट ट्यूब पड़ी हैं, एक में हिंदू का खून है, एक मुसलमान में है, एक में क्रिश्चियन है. वो टूट जाती हैं, सड़क पर गिर जाती हैं. अब आप बताओ कौन सा किसका है?
Beautiful, Mr. Narang. I think again, I mean, with you, I keep getting goosebumps, and I've just got them again. And we see so many people loving this. So I would now thank you very much for that, Ms. Narang, but we are not done yet. I would now request the team to open out everybody's let's see everybody. I mean, let's just put up their cameras and this. And I think Mrs. Narang would be happy, if I may say, Mrs. Narang, on your behalf, to take on any comments, any questions that you may have. Team, can you please open up the cameras and the unmute the mics? But we will ask questions as we go. So, what is the question that does anybody want to say something? Ask Mrs. Narang something. This is a great opportunity. Or you could write on the this thing, and we can just say it for you. I think you can unmute yourself and say anything if you want to. I saw a lot of hands being raised. I have Reena. I saw Kanchan's hand coming up. I saw Ritu's hand coming up. So, Reena, please.
I want to say once a mentor, always a mentor. We keep remembering you, ma'am, at every stage of my life. And I really thank you from the bottom of my heart. What you have taught us, this is still with us. And my whole team knows about it. I always quote your name. I think of you and gratitude for all of this learning today as well. Thank you, ma'am.
May I make a suggestion?
Hanji.
Maybe we should allow those who have not been with me to ask questions.
Yes, yes. Those people who are experiencing Mrs. Narang for the first time, please feel so free because, yes, I know, Reena, we all love her. And I think so many of
Yeah,
us
hi.
feel that she's our
Good
mentor.
evening. I am Preeti this side, Preeti Chaturvedi. And good evening, Ms. Anvita. Good evening, Mrs. Narang. I have not worked with you, but I think I heard so much about you that when I'm listening to you today and I'm seeing you, I feel that I know you so well. And always good things. Ms. Anvita cannot finish her talk or anything without taking your name. Never. So, and I got that opportunity, and I was lucky enough to work with Miss Anvita in Pathways. So I'm so glad that today I'm listening to you.
So at both of us.
And
Thank you so
thank you
much.
so much. Thank you. Thank
So
you.
I would also like to encourage if anybody has a burning question, and even if it's, I don't know how to do this or that, please feel free to ask Mrs. Narang, and you will get Mrs. Narang's opinion on that. And I do have a question that has come up. If nobody, Ms. Narang, we have this question. How do you see the future of learning environments evolving in the face of new challenges? Uh, which the challenges which could be, the way children um, have so much access to technology. And I always say that the more we know about our world, the less we know about our future, which is such a, it's such a difficult thing. So how would you how would you guide us to walk through that path?
You know, each one of us is responsible only for ourselves at the end of the day. And the world will take care of itself if each one of us takes care of ourselves. मैं एक आजकल when we were doing the student council elections at Sugam, one of the things that I did with the children was taking them through the journey. And मैंने एक note लिया और मैंने कहा इस तरफ गांधी जी की फोटो है और दूसरी तरफ लाल किले की है, आपको क्या चाहिए, ले लो जो आपको चाहिए। तो उन्होंने कहा गांधी जी। मैंने कहा ठीक है ले लो गांधी जी, लाल किला मुझे दे दो। इसे मैम पर इसमें से हम अलग कैसे करें? सो आई सेड तो आपको इससे क्या समझ में आ रहा है कि अगर आपको लाल किला चाहिए तो आपको गांधी जी साथ में लेने पड़ेंगे, और गांधी जी चाहिए तो लाल किला साथ में लेना पड़ेगा, दोनों साथ में लेने पड़ेंगे। सो राइट्स एंड रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज go together, they are not separable. And anytime you complain, if you complain that you have not been given your rights or given your due, then somewhere you have not done what you should have done. Somewhere you have not done what you should have done. And if that is what I have to say, that if each one of us who feels concerned about the future, it is uncertain. It is uncertain. Change is happening so fast. मैं कहती हूँ कि मैंने अपने जमाने में इतना चेंज देखा है और इतना तेजी से अब वो चेंज आ रहा है, that I take pride in having been with the times always. Even I am finding it a challenge. We cope with the challenge the best we can, the best we can. But as long as we are looking at both sides, responsibilities with our rights, our duties, with whatever privileges we have, the world will take care of itself.
Thank you, Mr. Narang, for that. You're so right. You can't take away one and decide to take just one. If Gandhiji comes, so does, Lal Kila come. Ms. Narang, one last question to you. What is the advice you would give to the teachers today? How do they prepare themselves to be able to embrace this change and work? Because they are also grappling with it. It isn't easy for them. Like, we have teachers from all ages. We are not all comfortable with technology. The children know so much more than us. How do we, what would your advice be? How do we deal with this? How do we prepare ourselves for this change that we don't know?
Accept that the children will know facts more than you, but not wisdom. So what your responsibility as teachers is to turn their information into wisdom, to turn their learning into education. And for that, you have to learn. There are a couple of things that you need to do. First is, don't supply answers, supply intelligent questions. I have read of a lot of American mothers of great people who every day when the child came back from home, they would ask, what question did you ask today? And that is what I am asking. What question did you ask your children today? Did it lead them to think independently? Did it lead them to examine their own lack of knowledge, lack of information, lack of certainty? This generation is so certain and confident of everything. All that you have to do is ask a question. Ask a question. एक छोटी सी कहानी और सुना दो।
Yes, Narang.
मुझे अभी हाल ही में एक टीचर ने मुझे बताया था कि that she was in going down the corridor and she heard one of her students being very rude about something that a teacher had said, and then the teacher had said कि your privileges will be taken away because of that. And the teacher said ऐसे कैसे ले लेंगे, इतनी फीस देते हैं हम. So that teacher was very patient and I hats off to her. She went into the classroom and she said, अच्छा तो आज हम बात करते हैं कि आप लोग क्या बनना चाहते हो? So everyone said, somebody said, I want to be a doctor. Somebody said, I want to be a scientist. Somebody said, computer analyst. Computers was the hands down favorite. And there was this one child, the same child. She said, I want to make a lot of money. And she said, so what are you going to do to make a lot of money? She said, I'm going to do business. So business mein kya hota hai? You invest and you get returns on that. And then you reinvest, you keep the whatever you have earned. And then she says, but फिर आप घाटे का सौदा क्यों करते हो? अभी क्यों घाटे का सौदा कर रहे हो? So she said, the girl was perplexed. And she said, अच्छा इस period में जिस class में से आप आ रहे हो, उसमें आपने क्या किया? And the girl had been not paying attention, and she had been. So क्या सीखा आपने? कुछ नहीं सीखा, क्योंकि आप ध्यान नहीं दे रहे थे. तो ये घाटे का सौदा हुआ ना. आपके पेरेंट्स इतनी फीस दे रहे हैं, and she made them do the mathematics. She made them do the mathematics कि इतनी साल भर की फीस होती है, उसमें इतनी महीने की होती है, इतनी हफ्ते की होती है, इतनी एक दिन की होती है, और एक पीरियड की इतनी फीस होती है. तो इतना इतना पैसा तो आपका गया जाया, आपने कुछ नहीं किया. You know, that is what you can't lose your cool, and you have to find ways of getting them to examine whatever their belief is. That is what you have to do.
Thank you so much, Mr. Narang. Very hard for me to break this conversation. We could keep talking for hours, but thank you so much on behalf of GSBA. And once again, this being the first GSBA talk show and you being the first guest is a blessing in itself, and it's a great honor. And thank you everyone who has shown your support to us and joined us at GSBA. I greatly appreciate that. We will keep coming back to you with more such shows which go beyond the books and the gyan, if I may call it. Our next show is going to be on the inclusive mindset. And if you keep watching our social media space, you will get to know when that is coming on. And in that, we're going to look at inclusion beyond learning diversity. It's going to be a lot more. So we hope to see you on that. Thank you very much, everyone, and the GSBA team for making this happen. Thank you and bye bye. Thank you. Have a
Thank
lovely
you.
evening.
And I'm going to close with what I like to say is, सब लोग आप चढ़ती कलाओं में रहो.